In this week's running video, we're going to discuss how the big toe joint can influence potential overuse injuries from running, as well as if you can improve the mobility and the strength around that joint, how it can actually improve your efficiency and your performance. So when I'm dealing with an injured runner, one of the first areas that I'm going to look at is going to be the ankle, the foot, and the big toe. So the big toe joint is actually a very important joint for running. And if there's any limitation around that joint, it can lead to a host of overuse injuries. So in many cases, we want to start at that joint to kind of see what's going on specifically there and what might be influenced based on the lack of mobility at the big toe. So if there is stiffness around the big toe, there's two conditions, and actually it's kind of like a gradient of the same condition, but if you have limited big toe extension, so unable to lift the toe up that way, get through your gait cycle and toe off through the big toe, it's called Hallux limitus. And if you're an older runner or you've had trauma to the big toe before, you might develop some arthritis at the big toe joint or some bone spurring, and then that's called Hallux rigidus. But either way, you're dealing with lack of range of motion at the big toe joint, which is going to lead to some compensatory patterns that are going to potentially cause overuse injuries. So what we want to look at is how a person is getting through their big toe while walking and running. So what should happen is we take a step, get through to our mid stance, and then we're able to toe off or push through our big toe very effectively. So in people who have limited big toe joint range of motion, what happens is as they take a step and start going through that, there's usually a couple different patterns that they'll try to use to get around the lack of mobility around the big toe. So the first one is that they're actually going to keep their weight on the outside part of the foot and push through the little toes. So instead of, again, going through the big toe like so, that they keep their weight more on the outside, so then they actually push off through their little toes. And so you might see it in runners when when you're watching behind, that you'll see their foot just kind of jut off to the side like that, or kind of whip off to the side, that can be a sign that they're trying to get around a stiff big toe joint. Now the other pattern is they're going to take a step, and then you'll see the foot. Well, some people will actually just run with their foot turned out, more duck-footed, but other times that there'll be a little quick churn like this, and then they push through the inside part of their big toe. So again, instead of going through the big toe straight on, that they have to find a way around it because that stiffness just doesn't allow them to go through normally. And then the final one that's a little harder to pick up, but this is when like a gait analysis or just getting some video and you can slow it down effectively, is that they just get incomplete extension. And so the foot's going to come down, and they're not going to really change the angle too much through the big toe. They're actually going to make it through, but instead of getting through the big toe joint like so, that they actually shorten their stride a bit, and then they just come straight through. So they're just not utilizing the big toe joint effectively. And then that's going to lead to limited hip extension, so you're not going to be able to access the posterior chain very well, and that can limit performance, but it can also lead to some overuse injuries higher up in the lower extremity. So what are some things that you can do about it? Well, there's some very easy mobility drills to do, but also one of the keys with this one is that you have to increase your awareness about getting your weight through your big toe so you can actually train it while you're running. Because if you're only doing some mobility exercises and stretches through the big toe, which is great, but if you can't actually use that while you're running and know what it feels like to press through that part of your foot, then it's a problem that's going to be around for a very long time. So one of the first exercises that I'll challenge people with first, and some people will get this right away and it's not going to be that big of a deal, but some people who just have never worked on their foot strengthening or their mobility before, it might be very challenging. So first thing to do just is to bring some awareness to the big toe and the small muscles of your feet. So what I ask patients to do is just try to lift their toes up like this. So most people can do that very easily. But what we want to now do is start training the ability for the small toe muscles on the bottom of our foot to be able to contract and relax independently of each other. So what this looks like is I'll try to have a patient just lift their big toe, and I'm not doing the best job of it right now, because what you also want to do is try to relax the little toes so these stay nice and flat while you lift up the big toe, and then try to do the opposite. So trying to press the big toe down through this joint here and the big toe joint there while you're lifting up the little toes, and then go in and out of that progression. So it's going to be very challenging for people, again, who haven't really worked on this before, but it starts just, again, waking up the big toe joint, what these muscles feel like. Some people might get some cramping in their foot when they first start doing this, because we're accessing muscles that haven't really worked that well for you before. So that's the first one, is just getting the big toe joint, the little toes to work independently of each other, okay? Now, this next one is going to be for people who might have a little bit of a higher arch and they have a hard time getting through towards their big toe because of a high stiff arch. So with this one, you're actually going to go in a half kneeling position like this and try to just work on just splaying out the toes as best you can. And from that first exercise, think about just pushing this portion of your big toe down towards the ground. So you're going to feel a little bit of load through there. And then we're going to use our knee to just lean forward and then come back. And so what we're looking for is that by bringing the knee forward, we're causing some internal rotation through our shin, and we're trying to flatten out the arch just a little bit, and we're going to rock back and get that arch height back. So pushing down and bringing it back. So we're not really working on the extension, like I was saying, is the big problem here, but we're just trying to bring some awareness to what it feels like to get our weight to shift through onto the inside part of the arch here and through the big toe. So this is something that I would have a patient do about 20 times or so, and just trying to increase the stretch and the flattening of the arch, again, if they have a bigger and stiff arch. Okay, now we're going to go through the actual big toe joint extension. So this is one where some people prefer to do it both at the same time, but you're actually going to go into all fours first, put your toes on the ground like so, and you're going to rock your weight back into your toes, and if you can tolerate it, you're going to sit back onto your heels, and you're just going to hang out here. Now, if you do have arthritis in your joints, you want to be very cautious with this stretch. You want to start very easy and just, get as much as you can without causing a bunch of pain. Just rock back, and if you feel a mild stretch, just hold it there, because going into full extension, you're likely not going to get there, so there's no reason to force it and cause more of an issue. So this is one version, but I also prefer this other version, and it's called a cowboy sit, to where it's the same idea, but we're going to do 1 foot at a time. So I like this just because you can just kind of feel the differences between the two sides and just try to isolate a really good stretch. And again, you can lean forward a little bit more to offset the weight a little bit, or you can go all the way into a seated position on top of the heel. And many people will find that one side is much more restricted than the other. And personally, my left side is the more of an issue for me, that I have a real stiff joint on this side, and I have a hard time comfortably getting into this position. So this is one that I do work on, but I often have to lean forward just a little bit more to make it more comfortable. So those are going to be some of the mobility and just kind of the static stretches that you'll start with, and then we want to start bringing some awareness in some of these other exercises through the big toe. So now for this next one, this is just a walking exercise to get you used to feeling what it's like to have your weight go through your big toe and through the inside part of your arch. So when you do this, you're going to take a step, and you're just trying to feel what it feels like to get through your big toe. So just really focus on getting through nice and easy, and just try to stay through the big toe as you're walking. And we're just trying to feel, again, for what it feels like to get into that position. So if at first it's real challenging, what sometimes helps in the initial phases is actually lift up the outside part of your foot. So really turn your feet in towards the big toes, and then just take some steps like this. And again, paying attention to what it feels like to just be in that portion of your foot. And for people who have, again, really high rigid arches, that this is something that, you know, they don't practice and they have a hard time getting their way through here. So the more you can start getting used to this, then you're going to start understanding what it feels like for while you're running, so that then you can help position your foot a little bit on the fly. So that's one progression. Another one is backwards walking when you're barefoot. So if you take a step back, you're going to go into big toe extension and then just slowly lower yourself down. So you're going to take a step back, load through the big toe, and take a step down. So you can do a combination of both of those, to where you're just walking on the inside part of your foot, trying to get through the big toe, or just get that weight through the arch. And then you're going to do the opposite, starting in big toe extension and then going to the mid stance like that. And just doing this as a drill for about 30 seconds, 60 seconds, just to get that distinction. So now this next exercise is going to introduce a little bit of force through the big toe joint and get the rest of the limb to participate in some muscle activity as well. So you're going to lay on your back and you're going to put your foot up on a wall or a door or a pad like I have, and you can play around with the foot position, but you don't want the leg completely locked out, but you don't want too much flexion either through the knee. So just try to find like a nice comfortable spot. And then what you're going to do here is press up into your big toe like so, and you're going to start pushing into the wall. And you want to think about your pressing through the back of your hips. So you're trying to get your glute muscles, you're trying to get your hamstrings, and you're just going to hold that position. So we're just trying to train the leg to work together all at once. So all the way from the toe, all the way up to the hip. And this is just a static hold. So we're just going to hold this position, getting through into that big toe. And then after you hold it for a bit, you can take it just through a little bit of range of motion. So just working the ankle, keeping the pressure through the big toe, and driving from the backside of the hip. And now the final exercise, we're going to actually get the whole limb moving through the big toe. So you're going to support yourself against the wall, and the side that you're going to work is going to be the back leg actually. So I try to find the end position first. So the end position is going to look like through our big toe, and this other leg is going to be towards the wall. So this is about where I'm going to finish the exercise. And then what I'm going to do now is rock back onto my heel, bring this leg back. And what I'm trying to feel for is keeping my big toe pressed down into the ground, pressing from my butt and my hamstring. And now I'm going to keep that pressure, push through the big toe towards the wall. And so I'm feeling a strong squeeze in my glutes, hamstring, all the way down through my big toe. And then I'm going to come back. So you're trying to maintain tension through the entire limb as you're doing this. So we're now working the full range of motion with good muscle control and letting the whole limb communicate together. And then as you get used to it, it can become a much more quick, forceful, propulsive exercise. But for our purposes in this video, just going through the range of motion, keeping the load through the big toe the entire time. All right, thanks for watching this week's video. I hope you learned something about the big toe and how it influences your running gait and could potentially be leading to some of the overuse injuries you may be experiencing. So if you liked the video, please like and comment below if you have any questions or any concerns at all. Happy to address those. And also, if you have any other suggestions at all in terms of what content you would like to see from us, please leave that in the comment section as well. We want to try to make as much content for our viewers as possible. So we want to create a little bit of a community around these videos. So your input will greatly help us out. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.